G'day folks, it's Ricko here. Now recently I ducked into my local Auto One store to pick up a set of Narva 215s to do a bit of an upgrade on the front end of my new GU. Well, new to me, I've only had it for a little while. I've taken off the old lights, and I tell you what, the wiring that was in there looked like a fire ready to go. And I'm ready to fit them up, but when I was down at Auto One, I said to my mate Trev down there, look mate, I'm not a big DIY guy. I don't really do a lot of this stuff myself. I normally get workshops to do it for me. And he showed me this. This was the extreme duty plug and play wiring harness, and he said this will make the job so simple it isn't funny. Seriously, give it a crack, save yourself a few bucks. So that's exactly what I've done. I'm going to give it a crack today. We'll see how we go.
Narva have done a great job of making this DIY as simple as humanly possible, and a big part of that is thanks to the wiring loom, and it comes with everything you need, and maybe even a couple of bits that you're not going to need. It depends on your vehicle. They've really got everything covered. Here's the switch. This is pre-wired, ready to rock and roll. The waterproof Deutsch plugs that go from the lights to the other loom, they're ready to go, and they're shielded with some great tubing as well. Have a go at this. You've got your relay, you've got your fuse. It's all been done for you, and even the headlight adapter, so you can tap into that headlight signal, makes the job really simple. Now, the driving lights themselves offer terrific bang for the buck. That's why I chose them, and that's why Trev recommended them. They come with everything you need. There's even a nice little rubber isolator there to stop them vibrating. Even the equipment you use to fit them up, the nuts and bolts, is high quality stainless steel.
Alright, so we're ready to start running the wiring. Now, the loom breaks down into three really easy to understand sections. So there's the section here called Section A, and everything's nice and clearly marked, Loom A. You've got negative, you've got to Loom B, to the Parkers. All the wiring and plugs are already done for you, so you just need to run them through. The second section is going to take care of all your power needs. So it's already got a nice fuse, relay, all the plugs and wires are done, very clearly marked. This one obviously goes to positive. This one goes down to Loom A, and this one runs to your switch. Yep, switch inside the vehicle. Couldn't be simpler. Better get to work, eh?
I'm starting here by laying the wiring out roughly into the areas where it's going to be fitted to the vehicle. Just untangle everything, make sure it's all laid out nice and neat to make the job of running the cabling through the vehicle a little bit easier. So I've got my plug here, and I'm just going to run it from the front of the vehicle where the lights are going to plug in into the engine bay itself. Take a bit of time here and find a route that's not going to have sharp edges. The loom itself, it's pretty well protected. It comes with a convoluted tubing that's designed to protect the wires inside. So if you are rubbing up against hard steel, you're not going to actually wear through the wiring itself, and it'll take a hell of a lot to get through that convoluted tubing. It's really heavy duty stuff. There are two ends here. One's longer than the other, so the longer cable is going to run to the light that's furthest away from where you're running the cabling through to the engine bay. Pretty obvious. And just grab the excess and pull that through, and you can actually wrap that up later on and make it nice and neat and tidy. Alright, so now it's time to start actually getting some wires connected where they need to be. On this first part of the loom that goes from the driving lights into the engine bay and into Loom B, we've got one of the wires that's clearly marked negative, so that needs to go to the negative terminal on the battery. It's already been pre-terminated with little ring ends there. I'll just give it a bit of a tweak to make sure it fits in there nicely. Whack the nut back onto the terminal. Really important to make sure that this is done up nice and tight so you don't have any earthing issues later on. Just give it a nice little tweak there. Good and tight, very important. Now this is the plug that's going to plug into the next part of the loom. So just tucking that under there so it's nice and neat. We'll grab a cable tie so it's not going to flop around and have any issues there, and just, again, nice, neat, nice and tight. She's not going to go anywhere. Trim the end off. You're ready to rock and roll with the next step.
Now, in most states by law, when you're running some auxiliary driving lights like these, they need to be tapped into high beam. And this little piece of wiring here that comes in the kit makes that job really easy. all you need to do is unplug the headlight, so on the driver's side, and plug this one back onto the headlight. The plug that you've taken off the headlight then goes back onto here. That plugs into your loom, and basically all that hard work's been done for you. Simple as that. Now, in my case, there's already one here. It's exactly the same, so I'm just going to leave that there and use that.
Okay, so now it's time to start working on part B of the loom. Part A is in place, ready to go. Now, I need to make sure that the plugs obviously are going to fit together for part A and part B, and I need to work out where I'm going to put this relay. It's important that it's in a place that's away from a heat source and easily accessible should you ever need to replace it years down the track. So I'll just work out the best spot to put this little bracket. I think right here on the body is going to be a good spot. So I've gone ahead and mounted the bracket. Now I need to get the relay back onto that bracket. Again, all of the components used in this loom are really high quality, so you're not going to have to worry about them flogging out soon or having to upgrade them to other bits and pieces. They're all really, really high quality, so they're going to last forever. She's plugged in there. That relay's not going anywhere. We're good to go. Perhaps one of the trickiest parts of the whole installation is actually running the cabling into the vehicle itself from the engine bay. Now, I've grabbed the switch out of the kit and I'm placing it roughly in position where I think it might work. I've run that cabling down under the steering column and into that section underneath the dash. And I'm fairly lucky that there's a bit of a hole there on the firewall where someone's run some wiring through before and they've actually taken the grommet out. So I was able to pass the switch through into the engine bay relatively simply. Now, you may need to have a look at your own vehicle to see the best way to do that. Obviously, every car is going to be different. So now I've got the other end of that switch and that's ready to be plugged in to section B of the loom. So here it is, ready to go. The other end at section B, those two can now go together. And now it's just a matter of grabbing the rest of the loom and running it neatly and away from everything. So now I'm just going to quickly unplug that, and I've found a spot where I can sort of run it through and underneath a couple of other bits and pieces to keep it out of the way and keep things nice and neat. It's really important, I think. The last thing you want to do is lift the engine or lift the bonnet and see a nasty looking engine bay that looks like it's ready to catch on fire. Plug that back in. Really simple job. Now we'll just grab this excess wire and we'll start to wrap that up nice and neatly. Let's grab a cable tie so we can wrap that up. So nice and tight. You want to keep it as compact as you can. So I'm just going to give it a bit of a squeeze together there. So I've located a spot just near the battery where there's plenty of room. I can simply slip that under there and run a cable tie around the whole lot and around some of the pre-existing factory wiring and get that out of the way. And that way, if I ever need to use this loom on another vehicle, I haven't chopped it up and it's pretty much ready to rock and roll. Chop the end off. Look at that, you can't even see it. Alright, well the last thing to do on section B of the loom is to connect the last wire, which is, for this case, the positive. So quickly undo the terminal there. Get that nut off. Grab that pre-terminated positive wire, pop him onto the terminal, and quickly do him back up. Imagine the time you're saving by not having to terminate all of these wire ends yourself. You don't need any special equipment. It really does make this job really, really easy. So nip that up again nice and tight, just like you did with the other one. Grab ourselves another cable tie, and we'll make sure we've got plenty of slack at either end before we cable tie it up. And again, neatness is the key. You don't want it to be obvious when you have a look that there's some sort of dodgy wiring going on. This is a professional kit. Gives you a professional finish if you take the time to do the job right. Alright, now I think we're ready to actually start mounting the lights themselves. Okay, well now it's time to start sorting out the wiring up the front of the vehicle, where we've got our really high quality waterproof Deutsch plugs. These are great plugs to go into the back of the light. As I said, really high quality. No water or dust is going to get in there. So I'm just going to run these roughly where I want them through the grill. Just like that. That way they're not getting pinched up between the grill and the bull bar or anything silly like that. They can't really flog around and get hurt while they're there. What I am going to do though is with that longer cable that runs across to the passenger side is grab a couple of cable ties and make sure that that's out of harm's way and that's not flogging around anywhere where it might get hurt or caught up on something underneath the vehicle should a stick or a rock or anything like that come up while we're four-wheel driving. Bit tight for space under there, can be a little bit difficult. Getting that last cable tie in place. As always, trim off those tag ends. Now I can very carefully pop the grill back into its mounting points, little clips there. And at the top, it's held in place with some little, I guess you'd call them little push-in plugs. And that locates them in there nicely. Give them a push to send it home. Okay, we're ready to start mounting the lights. Alright, so to mount the lights, we start by putting these very, very important rubber insulators in place. Now these do a couple of things. First of all, they help dampen any vibrations that go from the vehicle to the lights themselves. And they also act as a bit of a gasket and stop the light from spinning around or twisting or moving. If you're only going to use the one mounting bolt, I've elected to use two on mine to stop them spinning around. So now I've got all my fasteners in place and ready to go. You can see the two bolts there. Time to get those through the holes and onto the bull bar mounting surface itself. There's one in place. Oh, it looks great too. Fills up the gap just nicely. Grab our second one. On she goes. Look at that. That looks like $1 million. Alright, time to do them up. Once you've done that, the all important part, make sure you plug the wiring into the back of the light, otherwise she's not going to work, is she? You'll hear a nice solid click. That lets you know that the wire's home and you're good to go.
Well, I don't know about you, but I reckon these look absolutely fantastic. And my old mate Trev down there at my local Auto One, he was spot on. That loom saved me a whole bunch of work. Good on you, Trev. Thanks, mate. Look, if you'd like to find out more, head to auto1.com.au and have a crack at it yourself.